War Eagle, and welcome to an interview with the incomparable Art Slotkin. I'll say incomparable. A 1968 Auburn Engineering grad in aerospace, who a year later decided to go to a little school up north called Columbia for a civil.
Well, it was flight structure.
It was flight structure? I thought it was a civil engineering degree.
In the civil department.
Oh, in the civil department. Flight structures. Well, that makes sense with the aerospace. Good. I'm glad we got that ironed out. And then later, for some reason, decided to continue his education at a, what was the name of the school?
Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
But that's good on you. But it was history, though.
History.
That was after 30 years of work in computers.
Right. After I retired, I got a degree in the history and sociology of science and technology.
Now, what prompted that?
Well, my whole life I was interested in history. I used to travel a lot for my work, and instead of watching a movie, I would read a history book. And by the time I retired, I had about 100 or 400 history books I had read, and I said, what am I going to do? I retired early, and so I went and found a school where I lived. I live in Atlanta, that offered a degree in the history of technology. At the time, it was one of 10 or 12 schools in the country that did that.
400 history books.
400 history books.
That's pretty wild. I think I've probably read 400 pages. Well, so now we have come full circle back to your first love, and you were putting all of these degrees in some, way, shape, and form to you systematically documenting the history, mostly of the College of Engineering here at Auburn, but a few other areas, departments, schools.
Yes.
Not as good, obviously, but at the same time, share the wealth. But you have written books on the history of the Department of Biosystems Engineering, the Department of Aerospace Engineering, something you know a lot about, civil engineering, the originals, right?
Yes.
Yes, and then also on the history of women engineers at Auburn and black engineers at Auburn. For this year, on the occasion of the 150th anniversary of the colleges of, agriculture and engineering instruction, we said, Art, it's time. We got to go whole enchilada, whole hog, big picture. So you have written, and I believe what time it'll be coming out?
The College of Engineering history book will be out, I believe will be out in May. It's now going to the printer.
They Came From Auburn.
They Came From Auburn, a history of engineering in the New South.
Well, let's talk a little more about some of the foundational facts, let's say, that you cover in the book. I was honored to have been, I'm one of the first folks to have read it. And I was especially interested in something that maybe a lot of folks, I would think, would have really no idea about. Lord knows I didn't know. I remember writing you, because I would write in some notes here and there, and I was like, Art, this whole Russian system thing that we're talking about, this is Auburn. I'm not sure why we're talking about the Russians. And you wrote back and just trust me, it comes into play a little bit. So talk about the Russian system of instruction and practical mechanism, because this really seemed to play into, I guess, the instructional model in ways that, I don't know, I think a lot of people will find interesting.
Well, when the Alabama Mechanic and Agriculture Mechanic College was first formed, all they taught in engineering was civil engineering. But there were obviously other fields of engineering were evolving, and in the 1860s, the Imperial Russian Academy in Moscow came up with a method of instruction for mechanics. And it was as opposed to making things for sale, they made things for education, to teach the young engineers, if you will, how to use things, that would lead to manufacturing different artifacts, and they were larger than the normal size. There was a competing strategy that was used where they basically made things for sale, and some schools adopted the Russian method. The Russian method was very popular after the the Centennial exhibit in 1876, when the Russians exhibited their method here in the United States, and there were different opinions, and the Boston School of Technology, which is now called MIT, adopted the Russian method, and the Georgia School of Technology adopted the method used at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is the making things for sale. So Auburn adopted the Russian method when the first professor of civil engineering said, we're going to establish a shop, because you didn't need a shop for civil engineering, but he wanted to expand the teaching of mechanics, if you will, engineering, and they adopted the Russian method, but they didn't have the money or the staff to teach it, so it went by the side until 1884, when they established a mechanics shop and got money to pay for it here at Auburn. And the first director of the shop was a Boston School of Technology graduate, and his first assistant from Purdue, a young man from Purdue in 1884, J.J. Wilmore, who eventually became the first dean of engineering.
You know, to me that seemed something like you said, I guess Georgia Tech went another route, but something that distinguished Auburn early on. I mean, were there other schools in the South that, you know, were taking this seemingly sophisticated approach with their engineering instruction? And I guess I'm just, what were some of the other things maybe that?
Well, the real hero of Auburn history to me is President Brown, who came to Auburn from, had been president of the Georgia A&M, which was part of the University of Georgia. He then went to Vanderbilt. He was fired by Georgia because he had an argument with one of the trustees about how to spend the money. And so he went and helped found Vanderbilt. When he came to Auburn, he brought a much broader view of engineering than just civil engineering. So he wanted to establish a mechanic arts shop. And so what he did is he went out and got money, essentially, from the state legislature and from the federal government, and there were several federal acts that were passed that provided money. And he established the first mechanic arts shop, which was a woodworking shop. And then they had a metalworking shop. And then after all of that, they had a foundry shop. And then he established a physics shop, electrical engineering. So he established the first 3 branches of engineering during his tenure here. And he, even though the name of the college was A&M College of Alabama, Agricultural Mechanical College of Alabama, he said it should be called the Alabama Polytechnic Institute. Well, it was in the state constitution, the name Alabama A&M, so he couldn't change the name of the college, but he used Alabama Polytechnic Institute on the catalog. And in 1899, the state legislature actually changed the name to Alabama Polytechnic Institute. And by then we had 3 fields of engineering being taught, all because Brown brought it into the college.
So after looking, I know you knew a lot of this stuff, obviously from your previous works and books and years of research, but looking at it big picture now and being a graduate yourself, and I noticed that ring on your finger, that's not a Georgia Tech ring, that's not a Columbia ring, that's Auburn. So there's some pride there, I can tell. So looking back, after all this, after all of the, I don't know, when you see the work, the sweat, the passion that Auburn put into engineering education, knowing that it was this foundation for a future that that not only for the South but for the country. I mean, we look at Auburn graduates have gone on to incredible things. We're out of this world. We got a phone here made by a company that is currently CEO'd by an Auburn graduate, first $1 trillion company in the world. Apple is what I'm talking about, by the way. Apple, Tim Cook. But for you, looking back now, is there a greater sense of pride?
Oh, there's a lot of pride. I've been working. I was first approached about writing for Auburn in 2008. So it's been about 15 years since I started researching, and every year I do research and learn more about Auburn, learn more about the people. When I go into the archives, I spend a lot of time in the archives. I read the papers. It's really funny. I have personally met 10 of the 13 deans. I interviewed 9 of them over the last 15 years for different reasons, and I use a lot of the information that I gathered from those interviews.
Who's the best?
Who's the best dean?
Cut. Sorry, go ahead.
The best dean was Dean Pumphrey, because I have a piece of paper from him when I was here. A memo went to Pumphrey and said, here are the 3 nominees for the 3 best engineering graduates in the spring of 1968. And I have a piece of paper that says, "Okay, Pumphrey" on it. So he was the best.
Sorry, Steve, Chris,
no, actually,
Steve Pumphrey.
Steve Taylor, I've known Steve Taylor since he was the department head in biosystems engineering. And when I first met him, he was a very serious man. He still is a very serious man. But I followed his career from when he was an assistant professor. Similarly, I followed Chris Roberts from when he came in 1994. I interviewed him in the 90s, and I have one of the pictures I put in the book is when Chris Roberts was an assistant professor in 1994, and now he's certainly in several other. I interviewed him when he just became the chemical engineering department head, and then I interviewed him when he became dean. I haven't interviewed him since he became president, but I'm sure he'll invite me after this tape.
Oh yeah, he hasn't changed at all. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share, because it really is like a fascinating book. I know I'm kind of a an Auburn history buff myself, but reading through this, again, I was just astounded by some of the things that I was learning. The way that you do it, a lot of the books follow the same kind of formula, but and then this one I think of the ones that I've read, this is my favorite. Just the comprehensive look, the way that the that it ties in just the history, because the history of Auburn University in very much is the history of Auburn Engineering in a very big way. Like you said, I mean, some of the struggles in the 50s, it's this right at the same time, the ascendance of the football program. We're trying to overcome an engineering crisis with strategies and tactics that now have gone on to inform what we're doing now, and the great leaps and lengths, or the leaps that we have taken, the strides to get where we are in providing the best student-centered engineering education in the country. The incredible research that's going on that has put us into the top tier of public institutions. And anyway, and you can see that, tracing it back in the way that you do it, and my favorite success story, I think, has to be, though, the Office of Communications and Marketing that really came along and really just took the college to the next level. So, I mean, congrats to the Pumphreys and the Lanes and everything. But, yeah, I mean, that's obviously been a big addition.
Well, to me, the infrastructure that we have today, the Shelby Center, the new Brown Hall. There was another Brown Hall that was where the Harbarth Center is today, and it was a national landmark. And then Auburn University decided to tear it down, which caused
we got to look to the future.
Which caused a lot of problems with the federal government.
Well,
and but we have today the various buildings and infrastructure that didn't exist.
Well, thanks so much. Yes, look at what we have today, but at the same time, learn from what we had in the past. And again, it's an inspiring story. So thanks so much for taking the time to share it. Congrats on the books that continue to come forth. Looking forward to more. War Eagle.
War Eagle.